¿Y va el señor adentro?
No se veía.
¡Ay! No, 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 no.
Mira que ya se quedó ahí.
No, ya valió.
¿Cuántos pacientes más?
En verdad, esto nunca se había visto en Tula de Allende, Hidalgo, amigos. La situación es verdaderamente lamentable y triste para muchos de nuestros amigos, conocidos. Tristemente,
Ya se lo llevó. Ay, no, pobre señor. Yo le dije que no se metiera.
Mira, güey, allá está creciendo, vámonos, güey, ya, ¿de qué lado? ¿De qué lado, mira? ¿De qué lado del puente, mira? Vámonos. Mira, güey. Vámonos. Mira. ¡Ahí va un carro! Mire, que se salga mejor de allá, ¿verdad? Tu carro de la parva. santo! ¡En el suelo! ¡Al suelo! ¡Al suelo!
Wow. What the fuck? No para.
Felipe, Guanajuato, y son unas grietas que se han formado. Entonces ahorita estamos pues, trayéndoles la información, ya que en menos de 30 todos los seguidores les traemos un reporte acerca de los sismos.
No pasa nada. Vámonos. No pasa nada, no pasa nada. No pasa nada.
Ok, estamos aquí buscando a unos amigos. Esto es lo que pasó ahorita. Exactamente ahorita aquí en el Emporio. Wow. No mames, está muy cabrón esto.
Tonight are confirming one death from a 7.0 magnitude earthquake that hit a major Mexico City. That epicenter just 10 miles from Acapulco Tuesday night. It shook buildings all the way in Mexico City. That's nearly 200 miles away. Officials recorded at least 150 aftershocks that lasted until about 5 in the morning local time. Many are still without power, and Mexican officials say they're conducting reviews in 10 different states across the
now
country.
To some breaking international news. A powerful earthquake struck Mexico's Acapulco region late last night. The 7.0 magnitude quake could be felt as far away as Mexico City, around 231 miles away from the epicenter. One death has been reported so far. No serious damage has been reported, and there is
First tonight, breaking news from southern Mexico, where a 7.0 magnitude earthquake is triggering aftershocks and widespread power outages.
This just happened about a half an hour ago near the resort city of Acapulco, but it could be felt some 200 miles away in Mexico City, where they say buildings were shaking for up to a minute. We will keep you posted on this story.
Happening right now, the Salt Lake City Public Utilities Department is asking everyone to avoid the pond at Fairmont Park.
The heavy metal mercury has been detected in the water. Fox 13's Spencer Joseph joins us live from Sugar House with the latest. Spencer.
Yeah, we just heard from the mayor, the Salt Lake City Public Utilities Department, as well as the EPA, who is taking over this investigation as to how that mercury got in the pond. You'll hear from them in just a moment. But here is the latest on this situation. Take a look. This is what the park looks like today. You can see signs and caution tape up all around it and signs warning people to stay out of the water. Now, the EPA has taken over this investigation. They say right now they don't believe there is a risk to the public, but they were brought in by Utah to help assess the situation and do testing. Things, as I said, are still safe according to them, but they're really making sure that they can find the source of this, which they don't know yet. Exactly what type of mercury this is, they also don't know. So at this point, the pond and the waterways that lead in and out of it are closed. Now, that's all a part of the Parley's Water Exchange. It's an irrigation system that actually brings water up from Utah Lake, and they're actually cutting that off right now to the city of Salt Lake to make sure that that isn't the cause. So they're going really further back in this stream of things to really find out where this mercury is coming from. Here's the mayor and the EPA talking about this situation and the risk to the public.
There is still no reason for us to believe that there is a risk to public health, and that our closure of the pond is just out of an abundance of caution to ensure the safety of our residents.
It is more of a chronic exposure concern, so really means over the long term. Most adults and folks of who are healthy, young, most of the general population are probably going to be okay.
So another thing we asked about is the wildlife in the area. There are fish in this pond, as well as a lot of birds heading through the area. The risk to the wildlife is, according to them, low at this point, but that is something they are checking at this point. Of course, we'll keep you up to date on this, and the mayor also said they will continue to bring the public developments as they learn more. So for now, live in Sugar House, Spencer Joseph, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Spencer, thank you for the update. Going in depth now, the Environmental Protection Agency says mercury affects the central nervous system. Symptoms of mercury poisoning include tremors, mood swings, irritability, nervousness, or excessive shyness. You may also experience insomnia, headaches, weakness, or twitching, as well as poor mental function. If you or someone you know has been exposed to mercury, you can call the Utah Poison Control Hotline for free. Their number is 1-800-222-1222.
The meerkat exhibit at the Honolulu Zoo is temporarily closed after one of the meerkats was found dead. The city says Raphael was found in a tunnel that had collapsed around him. The 4-year-old had just arrived at the Honolulu Zoo in November of last year, along with his brothers Mikey and Leo. They were put on display in March. Officials say Leo and Mikey are safe and accounted for. Staff are now carefully examining their habitat and evaluating the exhibit to ensure their safety.
Signs on Minnesota Beach warn of red tide. Morning turtle walks show some positive signs of loggerheads and green turtles, but the Coastal Wildlife Club has also documented the devastation of red tide.
It's hard to see. We don't like to see any of the dead stuff.
Zobass is one of the club's principal permit holders.
Recently, we've been starting to see juvenile sea turtles dead washing in. The majority of them are the Kemp's Ridley.
Kemp's Ridley are considered the rarest of the turtles. Across other Sarasota County beaches, it's a similar situation.
In Sarasota right now, it's definitely well above average.
Dr. Alan Foley with FWC says in 6 weeks, 71 turtles have stranded. Many have died, and red tide is causing the sickness.
They're eating seafood that if we were in charge of them, we would say don't eat that.
The FWC says back in 2018, they documented well over 500 sea turtles killed by red tide. So far with this bloom, they're around 150.
The sea turtle populations have definitely declined over a long period of time, and that's why we're worried about them.
While we can work to stop excess nutrients from feeding red tide, Dr. Foley says there's not much more that can be done. For now, it's just wait and see.
That's kind of a key, is, will it dissipate in the next couple of weeks, or will it still be around?
In Sarasota County, Kimberly Quizon, Fox 13 News.
That's Sarasota, and Clearwater Marine Aquarium says in July, 3 sea turtles in their area washed up. They were sick from red tide. 1 died. The other 2, though, were able to recover and were released.
Down. Red tide persists along Florida's Gulf Coast in Pinellas County, but beachgoers say it seems the situation is getting better. Justin Shecker reports from Redington Shores Beach.
Tonight, I could still feel some respiratory irritation, likely from the red tide. But beachgoers tell 8 on Your Side the conditions were much better on this Labor Day compared to the 4th of July.
This is the best it's been all summer right now.
Heading into the holiday weekend, FWC still detected medium levels of red tide at several popular beaches in Pinellas County.
And here in the coastal a couple of weeks ago, there was fish all over the place.
Monday afternoon at Redington Shores Beach, 8 on Your Side found a few dead fish that washed ashore.
I kind of stay away from the beach. Honestly, during the red tide, if there's fish out there, I don't want to walk around that. So.
Throughout the summer, Sean Biglin says the customers coming from the beach to Candy Kitchen could feel the effects of red tide.
A lot of people that are coming down for vacation, they're always going to be like, yeah, no, this red tide is just affecting me. I'm coughing all the time.
For regular beachgoer Gavin Tuttle, the foul smell earlier this summer was unbearable.
In some areas, it was like you just had to run away. Like you just wanted to get out of there because it's just like, it's like a cafeteria bathroom.
But after skimboarding with his cousin this afternoon.
I don't smell it here. You get close to the water, you can smell a little bit, like in some areas. But overall, I would say it's better compared to early July.
Bob Martin has lived in Redington Shores for 30 years. He still remembers.
18, I think it was worse. It was a lot worse than 18. And you couldn't go fishing even months after that.
This year, he says he's hopeful the seafood industry that took a hit this summer will be able to bounce back soon.
But the fish is coming back now because I see a lot of fishermen out there. And redfish are running right now, mangrove snappers.
And the ice cream shop employees say when the red tide got especially bad at other local beaches in Pinellas County this summer, they noticed an influx of customers coming to their shop. Reporting in Redington Shores, I'm Justin Shecker, 8 on Your Side.
Japan's Defense Minister, Nobuo Kishi, was given a tour of the UK's largest and most powerful warship, the HMS Queen Elizabeth, as it docked near Tokyo. The ship leads 2 destroyers, 2 frigates, a submarine and 2 support ships, which set sail from Britain in May. London says the so-called Carrier Strike Group is part of the UK's new tilt toward the region. Its arrival comes in the face of increasing Chinese military activity in the South China Sea. Beijing claims most of the contested waters, territory also claimed by many of its neighbors, including Vietnam and the Philippines. Japan says China is its main national security threat and says intensifying Chinese activity around Taiwan has created a sense of crisis. Beijing considers the self-ruled island a rogue Chinese province. Chinese ships have shadowed the British fleet. Beijing has warned the UK against provocation.
We hope relevant countries will play a constructive role in promoting peace and stability in the Asia-Pacific, rather than doing the opposite.
The UK isn't the only nation conducting exercises in the region. The US and several of its other allies have recently sailed ships through the waterway.
China has responded by announcing a new maritime law requiring ships carrying a certain type of cargo, including submersibles or radioactive material, to report to Chinese authorities. analysts say the move is part of Beijing's efforts to establish jurisdiction over the South China Sea. Chinese experts say the law updates existing regulations and is focused on safety.
The ships carrying dangerous cargoes, especially those radioactive materials and those toxic materials, are different from 40 years ago. So I think it's becoming a more common state practice of coastal states to promulgate its own laws and regulations regarding these dangerous ships passing through its territorial sea.
Dr. Yen says Beijing considers the British fleet's presence in the South China Sea to be unfriendly. But the warships have so far steered clear of islands claimed by China. Their mission will continue until the end of the year.
Wonder about your kids' teachers. I know I was always both curious and concerned about who I was leaving my child with for 6 hours a day, 30 hours a week. I think I could say, though, that my son never encountered anyone like this.
Okay, so during third period, we have announcements and they do the Pledge of Allegiance. I always tell my class, stand if you feel like it, don't stand if you feel like it, say the words if you want, don't have to say the words. So my class decided to stand but not say the words. Totally fine.
Totally fine not to say the words to the Pledge of Allegiance? I don't think so. That woman, teacher, is reportedly Kristen Pitson of Newport Mesa School District in Orange County, California. Oh, and it gets worse.
Except for the fact that my room does not have a flag. It used to be there, but I took it down during COVID because it made me uncomfortable. And I packed it away and I don't know where, and I haven't found it yet.
So she left her kids with no American flag to look at while standing for the pledge because the American flag made her uncomfortable. And she has no intention of putting it back up.
But my kid today goes, hey, it's kind of weird that we just stand and then, we say it to nothing. And I'm like, oh, well, I gotta find it. Like, I'm working on it. I got you.
All right. And here's the most disturbing part of all.
In the meantime, I tell this kid, we do have a flag in the class that you can pledge your allegiance to. And he looks around and he goes, oh, that one?
She told her students to pledge allegiance to the...
Well, firefighters are getting the upper hand on a wildfire in Grant County. They now say the week-and-a-half-old Black Mountain fire is 69% contained. It's more than 400 acres northeast
of El Dorado County and the Caldor fire. More people are able to head back home in the Myers area. This is for homes north of the traffic circle at Highway 50 and Highway 89. Now, keep in mind that you may not have working utilities if you go back to your home. All right, the latest numbers on the Caldor fire. Containment has gone up now to 53%. Fire crews say that there's been minimal growth. The fire has burned about 218,000 acres, more than 770
coming
homes
to us out of the Delta, where a fire is burning at a landmark bar and restaurant, Juicy's. This family-run business is considered to be the oldest bar along the Delta here in Northern California, a favorite for more than 100 years. It's a popular destination for locals and tourists. This video from Livecopter 3 shows the business has been gutted. The roof collapsing, flames filling the once very popular bar and restaurant. This business located on Thorn Road in Walnut Grove. It's a family-run bar and restaurant, as I mentioned, that was featured recently on the show Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives.
Yeah, this restaurant goes back to 1900. Let's go back to video within the past half hour here from Livecopter 3, and you can see where it is in relation to the road and the bridge. So like you mentioned, Lisa, generations of people have been coming here. It's like a hangout, a favorite for locals and for people who are passing by in the Delta. And for others, it's just a landmark that you always see when you're riding and driving in that part of the Delta. So you can see just the fire taking over the entire area here. Let's go to live pictures again from Livecopter 3, and you can see that the fire has not abated, and there comes down part of the wall of what was this historic restaurant. Like I mentioned, the first generation on their website talks about the first generation from Augusto and Irene Giusti back in around 1900 when they built their restaurant there, and then it was taken over by other family members, where it was operated till this day. But now they are looking at what appears to be just a terrible, terrible loss, as this landmark, this favorite of so many people there, is now gone.
Yeah, it is just sad to watch that happen. And those live pictures from Livecopter 3, KCR3's Walter McCalla just arriving on the scene, and we literally are just seeing it fall apart, Walter.
Yeah, Lisa and Gulson, I'm standing right across from the delta where the fire is taking place. So take a look back here. You can see the thick plumes of smoke that is rising up and over the waterfront. We've seen some intense orange flames for about the last half hour. And just now, if you look to the left, there's a ladder truck that's spraying water from the top into where this intense fire has been going off for about 45 minutes now. And those orange and intense flames have just died down because of the help from that ladder truck. But if you look in the forefront between us, where our cameras are now, and the burnt out brush, you can see through that charred tree there that the building is no longer. There's also a couple of firefighters on our side. They have been spraying water into this fire for some time now, and there are actually some firefighters around the entire perimeter. Now, I know you can't see it, but there is a fire truck.
The oldest restaurant in the Delta is now a total loss. Drone video shows Justy's place in Walnut Grove after today's fire. Witnesses say it may have started in the kitchen there. The restaurant's website says it is 100 years old.
All right, so wildfires, we know, pose a threat every summer here in the Northwest, but increasingly hot temperatures and dry conditions are compounding the problem. King 5's Glenn Farley takes a deep dive into that growing threat and the impact on both sides of the Cascades in a new special called Scorched Earth, which is airing tomorrow night after football right here on King 5. So Glenn is joining us now. So glad to see you with us, and that you got to work on this really in-depth project. Talk to us about why wildfires are getting worse.
Because they are. I mean, not every year is the same. It's not a straight linear line, but overall, with the dips and valleys, the trend has been upward and upward and upward.
Just due to, for instance, the temperatures, climate
change, which means higher temperatures, drier summers. This has been a super dry summer. We are now back in drought again. And remember, we had a record drought in 2015, that 2014-2015 winter that also resulted not only in record fire season in terms of the largest fires in the state in 2014, which was quickly supplanted by an even bigger fire at more than 303,000 acres plus in 2015.
Is it harder to fight wildfires in this state than, let's say, another state? I mean, it seems that we have these intense fires.
Well, when you talk to firefighters, one thing that they worry about is if they fight a fire on the west slope of the Cascades, they say that is considerably steeper and more difficult than on the east slope. Now, in the eastern half of the state, we have more fires. On the western half of the state, we have fewer fires, but also we look at the potential for gigantic fires here, which we have seen in the past.
This is concerning. I mean, I know we've seen some of the situation happening in California. We've seen what the fires have done up in Tahoe and the mountains down there. What we've also seen across the board is just a lot of smoke. And that's what we're dealing with in our side
and
of
5 years ago, we weren't dealing with that.
And 5 years ago, this wasn't an issue. That every August, we were coughing our way through the month, right?
Right. I mean, it really started in about 2017, 2018, 2019, we got a break. 2020, this month, a year ago, was the worst. We had a 6,000-foot thick blanket of smoke on top of it, which was smoke blown out of Oregon and California, out over the Pacific, and then blown back on us. It actually dropped the temperature. It was hazardous. And you'll see some stuff in this series that showed just what we were breathing at that point.
Yeah, that is the thing that's really scary, and it was dangerous for some folks, people who are at risk, who have pre-existing conditions. This is a time that is really, really dangerous. So what can we do? I mean, obviously, we can't stop fires from happening, but we
on high alert right now as dry lightning could hit the region. That's not the only threat. Gusty winds are currently rolling in. That dangerous combination is now unleashing a risk of new wildfires sparking. New video from Chopper 5 shows just how bone dry it is in the East Bay Hills. We have team coverage on the fire danger. We begin with Chief Meteorologist Paul Hagan with more of the red flag warning that just went into effect. Paul?
And we will get to Wilson Walker in the East Bay in just a moment. Do want to give you the details of what we expect as we head through tonight. The lightning threat is the main concern, with that potential for thunderstorms to develop and roll through the North Bay and East Bay primarily. That's where the greatest concern is. Between now and 11 o'clock tomorrow morning is when the red flag warning expires. It looks like the greatest threat should be moving off to the east by about 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. It's a 50% storm chance. That is a higher risk compared to what we were talking about 24 hours ago. So if those thunderstorms develop, any cloud-to-ground lightning is not going to be balanced out by much precipitation out of these storms. They're not going to be completely dry, but just not enough rain to really put out any fires that could start. Plus, those storms could produce gusty winds that would then fan the flames. This is not a completely unusual setup for September and October. So we have this heat dome retreating off to the east. That, with an approaching storm system, is funneling this moisture up towards the Bay Area, and that's the source for these thunderstorms that are going to develop primarily late this evening and overnight. Take a look at high-def Doppler as things stand right now, coming up in the full forecast.
All right, Paul, thank you. KPIX5's Wilson Walker is out Mount Hamilton with more on the lightning threat. Wilson?
Yeah, Liz, up here where the SCU Lightning Complex fire burned through just over 1 year ago, and you better believe the firefighters who patrol this area and the observatory right over here, they are all watching the weather tonight.
We are at full staffing right now. We just have a lot of resources out on different incidents in the state of California. So right now we're at where we're able to be.
CAL FIRE's Santa Clara unit still busy helping with the fires in the Sierra just as the threat of lightning returns to the Bay Area.
This year, our vegetation and our weather patterns are kind of unprecedented. It's like nothing we've seen before. And so that makes for fighting fires, it makes it extremely difficult for our resources that are on the ground.
Extra equipment is on standby at the Morgan Hill headquarters, and other preparations are being made all the way across the hills of the East Bay, where fire departments will have extra crews at the ready.
Equipment-wise, what we attempt to do is put together a pre-positioned strike team. So a strike team is 5 light resources, or a task force, which is 5 resources of any type. Typically, those engines will have 3 to 4 firefighters on them.
CAL FIRE says it's working with NOAA to track the weather, and if a lightning strike does hit the ground, they know exactly when it happened, and often within several.
But first, we try to start with a laugh. Now, Singapore is a place that, has a different attitude to COVID than the lockdowns that exist right now in places like New South Wales and in Victoria. But their compliance is still something that they are, not trusting the police to do. Instead, get ready for the COVID robot. 𝐉𝐵 scans the area. If people are too close, it starts to let off a message, and if you ignore it, it sets off a siren. I don't know what happens if you ignore it after then, but At this stage, it doesn't have the capacity.
Tonight, the White House announces a new strategy to combat COVID-19. The focus on mask and vaccine requirements, a point of contention across America. Plus, the latest on Afghanistan, with some planes with Americans on board now allowed to take off. And clear and present danger.
They told me and the women standing around me that they wanted to kill us all.
Women in Afghanistan fear for their lives as the Taliban install a new government. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. The White House issues sweeping new requirements to combat the coronavirus. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup. We will get to our top story in just a moment, but first, movement on that Texas heartbeat bill. The Justice Department announcing this afternoon a lawsuit against the Lone Star State over the new law, which effectively bans abortion statewide.
SB 8 bans nearly all abortions in the state after 6 weeks of pregnancy, before many women even know they are pregnant, and months before a pregnancy is viable. It does so even in cases of rape, sexual abuse, or incest. The act is clearly unconstitutional under long-standing Supreme Court precedent.
The lawsuit comes days after President Biden instructed the DOJ to explore all actions to challenge the Texas measure, setting up what is sure to be a showdown between the federal government and the Lone Star State. Back to our top story. President Biden announced new executive orders mandating COVID shots for all federal employees and contractors with no exceptions, all in an effort to stop the current rising tide of COVID-19. CBN's Brody Carter joins us with more on the new federal mandates. Brody.
Well, John, in a boisterous move of executive power, President Biden announcing a sweeping federal vaccine mandate impacting as many as 100 million Americans. All employers with more than 100 workers will require them to be vaccinated and test for viruses every week. It comes as 75% of Americans have gotten at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Still, Americans are getting infected at 10 times the rate needed to end the pandemic. Here's what the president had to say earlier.
Tonight, I'm using that same authority to expand that to cover those who work in hospitals, home health care facilities, or other medical facilities. A total of 17 million healthcare workers. If you're seeking care at a health facility, you should be able to know that the people treating you are vaccinated.
The executive orders requiring all federal employees and federal contractors be
vaccinated.
President Biden signing a new executive order which requires vaccination for federal employees and contractors who do business with the federal government. The president wants private employers to do this as well.
The Department of Labor is developing an emergency rule to require all employers with 100 or more employees that together employ over 80 million workers to ensure their workforces are fully vaccinated.
With this announcement, workers in the federal executive branch, such as the Department of Defense, the VA, and others, would have to be vaccinated. That's about 2.5 million people. With this plan, Biden also wants increased testing and masking in schools to keep them open safely. This comes as the LAUSD votes on vaccination mandates for all students 12 and older.
We know it works in schools. We know that getting your kids vaccinated if they're 12 and older works. We know having more adults, teachers, people who are working in schools works.
The country is heading into the fall with 4 times more patients in hospitals than a year ago, more than 100,000. The good news is more than 208 million Americans have already received at least one dose of a vaccine, and 177 million are fully vaccinated.
If you wanted to pick the most powerful tool that we have, to really get us out of this pandemic, right now it's the vaccines that are on hand. So it's super important that we use the tool we have.
Now, the president says they're also looking at those booster shots of the vaccines for many people, but he says that's going to be decided by the scientists at the FDA and the CDC. He says, however, the booster shots are ready to go whenever they are approved.
Hello, I'm Mark Brown. Get more great ABC7 content by clicking the subscribe button for our YouTube channel and download the ABC7 Los Angeles streaming app on Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV, and Roku
from
to watch on your
unvaccinated coworkers.
Skyler Henry, CBS News, Washington.
We can also tell you this sweeping requirement will impact 80 million Americans. But what does this mean for our local businesses? Kate Houston spoke to the Las Vegas Chamber today. She's live in our newsroom with more on this reaction to breaking news. Kate?
Yes, well, Nevada is a state made up of small businesses, so an employer with more than 100 workers is considered large here. I spoke to Kara Clark with the Vegas Chamber, who says many large companies have already similar policies in place.
President Biden's vaccination requirement will impact large companies such as NV Energy and resorts on the Strip. For months, the hospitality industry has adopted new safety guidelines, from mandatory cleaning to mask wearing and vaccines. As the economy and workforce rebuild, Kara Clark with the Chamber says this guideline will only enhance what most businesses are already doing.
And this is just another one of those policies. It's certainly giving employees a choice in the matter, but to require vaccinations or COVID negative tests continues to keep that workplace safe and continues to make it safe for our visitors and our customers.
Clark says one concern is where the mandate is coming from. The Chamber wonders who has the authority to create a mandate for the private sector.
I asked Clark if the chamber anticipates any pushback from businesses. She says there may be some, but again, many have already put these policies in place or they plan to.
Governor Ige today approved Mayor Victorino's request for Maui Safer Outside rules. So starting next Wednesday, social gatherings will further limited to 5 people indoors and 10 outdoors. Restaurants and bars will have to close by 10 p.m. and customers over the age of 12 will be required to show proof of vaccination to dine indoors.
Now, unvaccinated customers can eat in outdoor dining areas or go ahead and grab takeout. During his news conference on Tuesday, Mayor Victorino had said there will be enforcement, but they're relying heavily on the public.
The liquor department will be monitoring a lot of that. For restaurants, we hope that they'll do the right thing, and the public Department of Health will have some people going out when they can to check out things, and we'll look what we see and what we get reported on, and we'll check it out.
The new rules will be in place for 30 days, and then they'll be reevaluated. Violators will be fined $250 for their first offense and $500 for each subsequent offense.
From Moderna, the Cambridge-based company says that it is working a booster shot that also protects against the flu. The combination would be administered 6 months after a second dose of its COVID vaccine. Moderna reportedly hopes to have the shot ready by the fall.
The Department of Labor is developing an emergency rule to require all employers with 100 or more employees that together employ over 80 million workers to ensure their workforces are fully vaccinated or show a negative test at least once a week.
New requirements for big businesses with more than 100 employees. Today, President Joe Biden addressing the nation in what he hopes will curb the spread of COVID-19, unveiling new vaccine and testing mandates.
ABC7's Rosemary Montañez joins us live with the very latest. And Rosemary, you had a chance to speak to a business advocate and a local business. What are they telling you today?
Well, Steph and Eric, we are hearing mixed reactions from both sides. Some believe that this will hurt businesses, while others believe that this is the way to go. Now, businesses must ensure that their workers are vaccinated or undergo testing, or they could face thousands of dollars in fines per employee if they don't comply. Today, I spoke with the El Paso Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. They tell me that this will weigh down businesses even more. Cindy Ramos-Davidson, the CEO, said that this will lead to more people not wanting to go back to work. But I also spoke with El Paso, the CEO of the Hospice El Paso, Jim Paul. He tells me that his workers are already undergoing weekly testing and they won't be too impacted. He says that 90% of his workers are already vaccinated. Both reacted to the president's announcement today.
Should that employee not want to be vaccinated but needs to be tested weekly to be able to come back to the office or to where they work, who's going to pick up the cost of that testing? And are the businesses going to have tests allowable in the office so that they can test themselves, or are they going to have specific testing sites?
So I think it's a very good thing, and I'm glad that the president has mandated this, and I think it just makes people feel a lot more secure.
Ramos Davidson with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce told me that El Paso the Commerce is working on a survey for her members to complete, and in that survey it will contain questions regarding the vaccine mandate for employees. She tells me that the survey result will be sent to President Biden's administration so that, quote, they will have the voice of business as they decide to move forward with his 6-part plan. In the studio, Rosemary Montañez.